Consolidation. Same with agriculture and stuff like that. Natural cultural resources statewide, so we get all the those statewide. So yeah, no, that's something to know. It's not cost effective. That's really your version of gavel.
I guess. Was that the gavel? Sound like a whale.
But I don't know, that could change here. That was just. Hi, Jim. Howard. Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Melissa. I'm Mary.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Person.
Hi, Brad. Nice to meet you.
Hey, it's noon.
Kenny?
I'm told there are microphones on, so
I like it.
don't embarrass yourself. I promised my wife I would. Anyway, before we begin, Director Wong has something he would like to present to the City of Eagle.
Well,
On behalf of who he'll say.
Mr. Mayor, again, we wanted to thank you, and of course the entire city, for the tremendous support you gave us to the Iowa Patriot Thunder. This year was just another great event with all the dollars going to military families and such. I have no clue how much we raised yet. I'll probably let it on today or next week. But by you letting us use the Eagle flags that you use for your Field of Honor, it made the absolute perfect send-off as we lined the departure route for over 600 motorcyclists on Sunday. So with that, we have a couple things for you. First off, your official patch since you didn't ride. And then we'd like to present this. We had very few of these made. This is the official poster for the Patriot Thunder. You will not see any of those hanging anywhere. They're made specifically to say thank you to all of our key supporters. So again, thank you very much for it. Appreciate it. Very nicely done.
Yeah, that was great. Now, little housekeeping as we begin. Since this is a public meeting and since we have a quorum, I would like to open this meeting and take a head count. We've got Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner May, Commissioner McKinney, Commissioner Me, and I'm not sure if Commissioner
She was unable to join.
Okay, she's ill. Doesn't ill enough that she doesn't need a note from her mother or anything like that either. So we'll go ahead with that, noticing that we're on the quorum and that we're in session. And Mayor, I guess you have to do the same thing.
I will do the same. We have Councilmember Gindelsberger, Councilmember Vaughn, Councilmember Pike, Councilmember Pittman here, and myself. So we have a quorum also.
All right. It's really gratifying to me to have at least one person here who has a name harder to pronounce than my own. Thank you. We'll begin. Our agenda today is short, just two particular items, and we have a presentation about Eagle Road and Old State Street, the Quadrant project review from ACHD. So we'll turn it over to Justin.
President, go forward. Members of the commission, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much. My name is Justin Lucas. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Project Management here at the Ada County Highway District. I just wanted to provide a brief kind of project update on Eagle Road and State Street, also called the Eagle Road or the Eagle Downtown Mobility Improvements. So just a brief history on the project, and it does go back further than 2016, but 2016 was a key milestone in the project history where the ACHD Commission, in coordination with the City of Eagle, chose to move forward with a quadrant intersection. I'm sure all of you have seen those designs as we've worked through the process. Starting in 2020, we began the detailed design work on this up to where we are today. continuing to work on the design of that project. And today we sit at 95%, so near completion on the design. And today's joint meeting is to discuss the project and other things going on. We did receive a City of Eagle letter just recently here at the Highway District. These were the 4 main topics brought up in the letter. I'm not going to dive into each of these. I know the city staff has a presentation that they're going to present on this. So I just wanted to put up a map of the quadrant, and the key features there obviously have been discussed at length. And with that, I'm glad to stand for any questions or comments you have at this time, and I know that Nicole also has a presentation.
Just for me, I want, this is something that, for the city of Eagle especially, we've got to make sure we get done right the first time. It's not something where we're going to be able to change in the future. Our downtown is one of those things that personally I've always seen. It's not a place to always move traffic. It's a destination for our businesses. It's a destination for our residents, and really making it pedestrian and bicycle and everything friendly to kind of be down there. We do a lot of events down there, as you all know. We ask for all kinds of road blockages and things like that at different times, and at the same time giving the residents a lot of different ways and choices to get through the city, which I think this project really does. And I think we're able to add maybe 1 or 2 more. For me, I always like to bring things up probably too early, the what ifs, and I know that's tough for an organization when you guys have to go, well, we're not just worried about the city of Eagle, we worry about 5 other cities on top of it. And so, but I personally think that, with ideas that we might have, we need to bring those to you guys as soon as possible. Even if we don't have the answers all right now, and even if we can't do it, even if at some point you guys go, hey, gosh, this just isn't gonna work on what we're doing, I still think we need to bring those things up to you guys. So we just want to talk about a couple of things. I was a little worried about the way ITD changed the CFI so quickly, and how well the new interchange has been looked at by this project.
Those guys print money,
Yeah, exactly. Must be nice, right? So I wanted to make sure that we were looking at, the time differences we were going to see at State Highway 44 and Eagle Road, from going from the CFI to the expansion of it. What is that going to look like as traffic goes north? As you know, from my understanding, they're taking that intersection at about 118-second time frame at the lights down to, they were going to be down at 46, and now they're going to about 60 seconds. What is 60-second time? Half the amount of time people wait at that intersection look like when you're pushing people north into a 2-lane road. How do those things all work at that? So I really want to make sure that we had a good chance to study that and look at it and see if there were other things that maybe we could do that could help that around the city, and what can we do from a city to help with those road improvements also. Whether it's, talking with our urban renewal district, talking with our, the money that we can save through our CIP that we're trying to put together, so that it doesn't all fall on HCHD, but we make sure we get the best project for the city for the next 50 to 100 years, not just what's going to solve something for the next 3 to 5. So those are just some of the things that I think bringing this together. Nicole and I put some stuff together so that we can kind of look at it and see what some of our ideas are. Like I say, they might be premature, but I always feel it's better to come to you guys with more communication than less, right? We don't want to say in the 3rd hour, let's change it from a CFI to expanding to, no, I'm just kidding. So we don't want to make rash decisions.
We're not big CFI fans, by the way.
So.
Any other comments from Eagle? Yes, me too. So we'll go ahead and go with that, and then I'm sure there'll be more discussion.
Good afternoon, Council and Commissioners. My name is Nicole Baird-Spencer, Director of Long Range Planning and Projects for the City of Eagle. I've been with this project since its initial inception as a study in downtown Eagle. So we won't say how long ago that was, but it's been a while. Today we're just here to kind of talk through some of the city's concerns and where we're at on the project. So the city's concerns really are four places. One is business recovery and stability. No one saw COVID-19 coming. We had 18 months of closures and restrictions, and we're just getting to the point that we're returning to normality. We're not sure that we're completely there. We are seeing some signs that maybe we're going to have a little bit more rough roads ahead, but that's one of our main concerns. Changes to the State Highway 44 and 55 intersection, as the mayor stated. The changes to the intersection have impacts on our downtown. We are less than a mile from State Highway 44 to the crossroads at Eagle and State Street within our downtown. And it's a really discussion of, we are really concerned about the stacking and signal timing of what's happening between State Street and State Highway 44, where that highway dead ends right into a downtown, into our local street system. How does that get dealt with, and how do we work through that with those changes that took place? We also have some concerns that we would like to address and talk through some new connections and improvements. The city, in conjunction with the Eagle URA, did complete in the fall of 2020 the Palmetto Street extension, which is a new access point mid-mile between Edgewood Lane and Eagle Road. And I think at this point in time, we want to understand how that's functioning, how it's interacting with the local network, what types of trips are being to that street versus. And then a potential for an additional connection that creates options to distribute traffic within downtown Eagle. And then finally, one of our concerns is the magnitude of the impact. The number of streets improvements that are all going to occur in one fiscal year and one timing cycle. Really, I have not been able to come up with a good nomenclature for it, aside from like it's the big dig, right? It's everything in our downtown being touched at once, which has concerns for businesses, but also for just mobility of the city. And discussion of the need to phase improvements over time. So here's just, I know we have a couple new commissioners, but really having a conversation about the geography of downtown Eagle. It's a unique being. We have State Highway 44 bypass that was constructed in the late 90s, which severed Old State Street, which was the old highway that went through the middle of downtown, which is now really the equivalent of the City of Eagle's Main Street. It's just under a mile between Edgewood and Eagle Road, and 1.4 miles between Eagle Road and Ballantyne. So really, Eagle Road is the direct shot. It's where the State Highway 55 dead ends. You have to take a hard right to head north any further on Highway 55, and you get into this downtown grid of our city. You can see Edgewood Lane, Eagle, and Ballantyne are our only connections to 44. Palmetto is a right in, right out. It was just constructed this past year. We've certainly worked with ACHD on the Hill Road connection and then Plaza Drive extension. So those are previous projects. But one of the things you'll see in our downtown grid is none of our streets really connect. We have a downtown that has discontiguous system. So as we start talking about how we construct or make improvements to our downtown, it's really important to the city to have a conversation about connectivity. So downtown Eagle serves as our major activity center. It's the home of our small business hubs within the city. That are all reliant on walking and parking availability. It's the center of the community events. We hold Eagle Fun Days, we have the Eagle Country Christmas, we have the Gazebo concert series, and Saturday Market, all that happen within the footprint of where the downtown mobility improvements are going to take place. We also have some major obstacles to downtown. Aside from State Highway 55 and 44 that we spoke of earlier, we have a bench in our downtown. So actually, after you get about 3/4 of a mile into downtown, we have a bench that goes up the hill, and there's no connectivity due to the irrigation and drain system within our city. So we really do have some obstacles that are crisscrossing in the downtown, making downtown a little bit more sensitive to where roads can go, as well as what happens when we start doing construction on those roads. So downtown Eagle really is reliant on local roads. Again, that discontinuous road system, the lack of collectors or arterials within our downtown. We have Eagle and we have State. Every other road within our downtown is actually classified as a local road. We have no collector systems, and we have limited ability to use impact fees for eligible projects, because your impact fees, ACHD impact fees, don't work on local and collector roads. We have had a great partnership with the Eagle URA to do some partnering and working on some planning projects, but we really need to come to you and have a conversation about the roadway system, because your roads run through us. So ACHD has done some great projects in our downtown. Aikens is one of them. Plaza Street Extension that I spoke of before were both done as economic development projects that the ACHD campaigned for in the early 2000s. But those projects are no longer being funded through ACHD. So there's really kind of this impossible place for us that if we don't see new development, we can't get developers to build projects, but we can't get developers to come in because we don't have the projects and the connectivity to get them to come into downtown. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg issue that we're having within our downtown. So one of the things we wanted to talk about and was addressed in our letter was the opportunity to phase. So originally, Aiken Street Extension, here, number 2, was a separate project from the Downtown Eagle mobility improvements. They were then merged together into this big project that does a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily give a good throughput for the city of Eagle. So one of our conversations we'd like to talk about is the ability to phase improvements and looking at constructing Plaza Drive from Eagle Road to 2nd Street as one phase, and then looking at Aikens and from what's basically 1st Street to 2nd Street, doing those two together, and then coming back and looking at State Street. So we're creating opportunities to distribute traffic through the downtown, so not everything is in construction at the same time. You're not cutting people off, because the other option, again, is to go all the way out to Edgewood, which is a mile to the east, or 1.4 miles to the west to Ballantyne, to get in there and then work their way back into our downtown. The other discussion would be a phase 2, which would be our north-south phase, which would give us the ability to work on Eagle Road and then look at Old Park and then Aiken Street on that. I added Palmetto here because I think it's going to be kind of a very important road as we go forward. But really talk about those phasing and timing of construction, maybe looking at a couple years for construction that would allow us to get some relief to our businesses as this moves forward. So then finally, we brought up the discussion of an alternative alignment. The city, this is our downtown grid. The hatch streets, the blue and yellow hatch streets don't exist today. So as you can see, Plaza Drive dead ends into Eagle Road from the east. You have Aiken Street that just runs from Eagle Road to just past 1st Street. And then you have State Street and Eagle Road as your only throughputs. Old Park dead ends at Aikens. And right now Aikens is a substandard road, 2-lane road, that comes out to Eagle Road. What we would like to talk about is completion of 2 southern legs of the Quadrant design. Initially, in the design for the Quadrant Road, only 2nd Street to Plaza was seen as the Quadrant Road. So it's not really a quadrant, it's a quarter road because it's only happening in 1/4 of the intersection. The north 2 legs of the intersection don't have a quadrant road, and neither does the southwest corner of the intersection. So we'd like to talk about really how do you make a project that builds out a true quadrant road. We'd like to talk about how we can create longer street lengths for stacking on the west side of Eagle Road. As the project is designed today, people will come down State Street and need to take a right onto Old Park and then take a left onto Aikens, and then this becomes a right in, right out intersection only, and they have to then come down to this signal versus being able to come off Old Park Place and stack in a single road that could be constructed in this location. And then utilizing the signal versus having a stop condition right in, right out on Aikens. It would give us a better distribution of traffic because through the downtown, as you hit Plaza, you have 3 options. You could go to Old Park, you could go to Plaza Drive, or you could continue to go north on Eagle Road versus where we are today, where you are really only going to either Plaza or Eagle Road. And then it leverages the design work that's currently underway with the Eagle Urban Renewal Agency. They have worked with us on our downtown grid street improvements, in which actually talk about types of cross sections, sidewalk improvements in the downtown, and connectivity and how they work together. So really see this as a chance to jump off onto a larger concept and discussion of our downtown and how we work together to do that. The URA has been a great partner to us. They've worked with us on Palmetto, and certainly they're working with us currently on several design elements that the city needs to standardize across the city. So in our letter last week, the city requested to move the project to fiscal year 2024 to allow us to update the models with ITD changes, the new connections, and the potential expansion of the project. Are there any benefits to the Old Park Place extension that haven't been seen? Can we reduce right-of-way on Eagle Road, where we're currently requiring to take out street trees and those type of things, expanding culverts? Completion of the 2 legs of an intersection versus a single leg, creating some symmetry in the downtown grid that's coming in. The benefit of Palmetto and State 4, seeing if we can look at what that is doing or could be doing to better decrease the demand on Eagle Road now that there is a right in, right out condition at a half mile to the east of this intersection. Talk about phasing of improvements to reduce the impacts on downtown businesses, looking at a 2-year construction cycle, and then looking at alternative investment and utilization of signals. Shifting improvements from Aikens west of Eagle Road to Old Park extension, connecting to the Light Up Plaza, increasing the stacking west of Eagle Road to allow for better flow of traffic with the signal at State Highway 44, and then finally reduce the right-of-way width on Eagle Road. We have several state champion trees that are on a property just on the west side of the road. It would also allow us to reduce our pedestrian crossing lengths. But rather than having a 5-lane road, we would be able to keep it a narrower crossing. We'd require smaller culverts and drain crossings, and it keeps the small town feel of Eagle. One of the things that our council and our citizenry continue to say, if they don't want to feel like they're in a big city, they still want to feel like they're in a small town. And how do we do that? Many of you who've known me for years know I have my colander versus a funnel approach to transportation planning and city planning, which is it's always better to have multiple perforations where we can do little bits or have alternatives to go through town versus doing a funnel, which is one point. And that's what Eagle has today. We have a funnel. Eagle Road functions, I'm going to go back here, as that funnel. And the city really wants to talk about how can we, in the next year, work through design and work with the URA to get to a point that maybe we can construct a more complete system within the downtown. Is there any questions? So the difference is, at this point in time, Old Park connects at Aikens here, and that is your connection on the west side of Eagle Road to Eagle Road and south on Highway 44. The main difference is this connection of Old Park Place south across the culvert to the signal at Plaza Drive.
So is that in addition to the design that's been worked out over the years and changed a couple of times and the roundabout trashed and all that stuff? This is something new?
So new is a relative term, and as you know, there's been a huge history about this. The Old Park Place connection has been in the city's comprehensive plan since 2014. So it is a fairly new connection, but it's not new to this necessarily to this area. It is new to the intersection. If you remember correctly, back in the day where we did the preliminary design of the State and Eagle intersection, we had 4 alternatives. And this is kind of a hybrid of the two because it has the Quadrant road, but it also takes the couplet, which basically says rather than making one-way streets within our downtown, creating 2-way local streets within the downtown to increase connectivity. So if you took the hybrid of the two, it would be the child of the Quadrant and of the what was called the couplet at the time.
Was this brought up during the design phase of the plans that have already been produced?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so, you know, one of the things is, like I talked about before, was the fact that, once again, we're at the very beginning stages of this. We understand you guys can't, if we can't have these things put together by, I think our letter said August of 2022, to get this property to extend Old Place, do all the things that we need to do as a city to help you guys through this process, then obviously we don't want to hold up the whole project, right? But also, is looking at having all 3 of these, State Street, Aikens, and Plaza, all things happening on them at the same time in 1 year is going to put some really bad stress on our city.
Yep.
Our downtown, yeah, it's just, so I mean, if we can do Plaza and Aikens and then save State Street, you know, for that one expanded year, I think the way that looks also is, once again, study what the CFI changed made to what's happening in that funnel approach. And then it gives us a little bit of time to work on what we can do to acquire property and do things to get the Old Park extension. Because I think ultimately that's the long-term kind of help in that situation. If you look at the way Aikens is, so, you know, if you're coming from the right on State Street, you're not gonna be able to turn left onto Eagle Road. You're either gonna have to know you have to turn at Second and come down to Plaza, or you're gonna have to go past it to Old Park and then come back on Akins and make a right-hand turn. And that just, there's not a lot of stacking in that area for that, and it's not an ideal, I don't think an ideal kind of situation.
You mentioned earlier that you thought that you could use less right-of-way, and also mentioned that you wanted to make this core area more bicycle and pedestrian friendly, and I'm kind of wondering how those two actually work together.
Well, so for me, and you know, this is how I've seen things over the years, is the wider you make things, the more you make it car friendly, the less you make it pedestrian friendly.
Well, and that's
So-
absolutely true. By right-of-way, I meant you can make the car friendliness any way you want. But without enough right-of-way, you absolutely eliminate the pedestrian and bicycle-friendly part.
Well, yeah, and I think what we're saying by the main right of way is the fact that from Eagle Road up to Akins, it's gonna be looking to be expanded. So you take away a lot of greenery, you take a lot of our meandering sidewalks and all those things, and you make it that kind of concrete jungle. When you do Old Park, you put those people past a lot of those spots back closer towards the highway without having to, and of course, you know, we have a giant electrical pole right in the middle of some places that can be widened, so we're really restricted on what can happen north of Akins. And if we can get those folks not using Akins and then extending the Old Park place out to a light, not only that, we've now created, I think, a safer spot for a light, where Akins, even though people are gonna come out and only make a right, you're still making a right turn without any controlled traffic.
Well, if you need an electrical pole moved for anything in the next 10 years, you better let Idaho Power know now.
Yeah, yeah, no, that pole isn't going anywhere. That thing's massive. It's not it's not a typical pole there. So these were just some of the things, and so if we were able to take some relief off Eagle Road by having the Old Park extension, does that mean that we could maybe possibly keep that feel when you come in to have that, you know, kind of green space, you know, our sign, it's our entry sign to our city that has the eagle on it. I mean, it's really kind of iconic to the city.
We can, if the right-of-way and stuff is purchased for that.
Right.
That's no problem. But if we have to go in and do something with a more limited right-of-way or easements available or anything, then, you know, we'll be kind of stuck like we are on State Street with, you know, so much less parking available or potential additional parking that was available even a couple of years ago, which is going to make it much more difficult for you to achieve what you want in the way of walkability and rideability.
Yeah, we just actually had a parking study done in downtown, and we're only using 25% of our parking is what they've told us. So I think
Okay.
for us, I think the parking problem in downtown Eagle has been on us in the education of the public of where you can park, more than it is that there's actual parking.
That's
And that's something we need to work on.
that's nice to know.
I mean, so that's some of the stuff that's been told by us. So, you know, like I said, fairly early stages. We don't know what will happen with the property owner. We're looking at doing something with Old Park. It's been in our plan since 2014. I know we've been talking about it even longer than that, but officially 2014. And like I said, just getting people to those signals. And you know, we're just trying to make it so that this downtown area just stays, you know, we've got a lot of different commercial entities around Eagle. You know, we go all the way out to Linder and Highway 2026. We go all the way to Eagle 2026. We've got a lot of these, and this downtown is going to always have a different feel than the rest of those, and we want to be able to kind of keep that.
Have you bounced this off our staff yet?
I think they kind of know that it's some of our thought process. And we understand you guys being at 95% design, that maybe once again in our budgeting, we need to pony up some dollars to make those adjustments happen.
In case you haven't heard, that's actually becoming a more widely accepted approach from some of our other municipal partners that are in the same situation, and would be a whole lot easier to accomplish with that kind of olive branch or cash branch or whatever you want
Well,
to call it.
and I think it's when when a city is looking to do something out of the norm, I think it's the right thing to do, right? You guys
I
have what
disagree.
you stick to and do,
Yeah.
then what, when we want something a little different, or we want something done sooner, what can we do to try to help those things?
Yeah. Have you reached out yet, it might be premature, to any of the groups that we include in our decision-making process for pedestrians, bicyclists, and ADA groups or anything?
Not specific on this part, no, we have not yet.
Okay.
Like I said, it's very early stages. It's, hey, you know, it's better to float the idea now than later, and kind of find it sooner the better.
Yeah, the sooner the better. We've found that the more and the earlier that we engage those folks on our end, the easier life is for us. Right, Jim?
Absolutely. Mayor, I appreciate your comments. I think this actually isn't out of the norm, and this is what makes urban centers thrive, is connectivity. And I think you've seen that. Boise certainly learned that lesson. They went to a whole bunch of one-way streets, and then years ago, and then it's been really hard to shift those back to two ways. But when they have, the investments come, and that's what you're asking for. You want a downtown that people want to invest in, and connectivity of streets is absolutely critical for that. And then the two-way on as many streets as possible, and making it not big wide boulevards, but urban streets, so people feel safe walking and biking. Traffic's not going through fast, zipping through. So I think that makes a whole lot of sense. The other is, and Nicole put a great point up that just a red light to me, is that towards the bottom of one of your PowerPoints, none of this is impact fee eligible. And we go to the legislature, we are quickly running out of things we can spend impact fees on because of the incredibly narrow, limited scope in which, and yet it's the new growth, the new businesses, the very people who will want to help pay for those things with their impact fees are not going to be able to. They'll be spent, with all due respect, Commissioner Goldthorpe, down in Cuna to finish up some road connections and widening down there, and they're not going to appreciate that. So that needs to be a #1 priority. You have some very influential leaders from Eagle in the legislature. If they can help us carry that through to say we need a broader definition of what growth impacts in transportation, so that it is connectivity of streets. It is the ability to put in, when a street starts to get more traffic because of growth, it becomes less safe for walking and biking and for businesses. And so the kind of amenities that we need to put in because of growth ought to be paid for with impact fees. And right now it's not. It's paid for by property taxes. And then it gets to be a very, very, very long list, and they get to the bottom of the list. So any help you can provide would be tremendous, so that Eagle is not left out, which it currently largely is, of our ability to spend the impact fees. So I think the other is, it's good, we're gradually moving more towards not getting so caught up on moving towards a design, 95% design, and then feeling like, well, that's what we have to stick with. We have to move slowly, incrementally. As Nicole said, I like your image. Bits and pieces here and there, make adjustments as we go along, because the end result you're going to have to live with, you and your grandkids are going to have to live with for a long, long time. So we got to get it right, and that means not to get locked into a design and say, well, we've spent this money on this design, so we might as well go ahead and forward and build it. And then the costs and consequences of that can be pretty high in future generations. So I agree. I think it's appropriate that we take this slowly, especially at the downtown cores of each of the cities that we represent.
And you know,
appreciate you bringing that up.
The ACHD and the way things were done through the legislature and the way you spend impact fees worked 20 years ago, when all these were bedroom communities only.
Yeah.
That's all they were. So, you know, you needed that to be able to spend it in the areas where people were going to work and doing everything else outside. They're no longer Cuna, you know, Meridian, Eagle, even Star's going to kids coming up quick, they're not those same bedroom communities. They need to be able to invest those monies through the impact fees in their own communities, not just the fact that they're affecting other parts of the county.
Any help you can do, I think we're gonna soon reach a point where we can't spend the impact fees and it'll be an irrelevant statute.
We already have $8
Anything you can
million
do.
we couldn't spend this year.
Right, we've moved from loaning money to the fund to now accumulating more money in the fund. I mean, but we have to be able to we have to have projects. We can't assess the fee without saying this is where we're gonna spend it, so we're gonna run into that.
We'll take it.
Well, that's the problem. It's not eligible because the legislature hasn't changed it. There's one thing I'd want to point out too, and it's not directly related to this, but there is movement on 44 or State Street, not really on 44, to put the high capacity transit system in the State Street Transit and Traffic Operations Plan. And I don't want you guys to be in a point where there'll be a high capacity transit system that ends at Glenwood. And that Eagle residents and people to the west of Eagle have to drive to Glenwood to get on that transit system. And to think about, okay, what does that mean in terms of Highway 44 and the Highway 44 extension? I'm really glad that this intersection is being redesigned because it's more conducive to fitting in the bus rapid transit system that is going in on State Street than the continuous flow. From what I understood, it would have been more problematic. There's a little more flexibility, but just know that you're going to get that pressure later on once they actually start to see something on the ground. I'm fairly confident we're going to have federal earmark to help move that down the road, so people are going to start to see something to the east, and I'm sure they don't want it to just permanently end in Glenwood. So that's why thinking about how Eagle starts to design and move towards how do we tap into that in Middleton all the way up to Glenwood.
So yeah, well, I don't know if you guys know this, but we've asked ACHD to do a little speed study on State Street to try to get that lowered down actually from 25 to 20. We're trying to make our downtown a destination. We're trying to make it so that you come there for a purpose. The last study that was done, I believe 75% of the traffic that was going through Eagle and State intersection were going through. And there's not, even though Nicole showed that there are ways around, there isn't a ton of homes straight up that need to always use Eagle Road. It just has become a convenient factor, and so they end up doing that. But I actually happen to live on Valentine and Floating Feather, and I have two ways I can go home. I can come home through downtown, see who's hanging out at Rembrandt's or who's hanging out at Bodacious Pig or whatever and say hi, or I can go down the bypass and get home, and I usually get home faster, even though it's, a tenth of a mile further going the other way. So if you get to make those choices as residents, and so we'd like to, like I said, make it more friendly.
Yeah, and I think the kind of thing that your urban renewal district is doing and designing, that affects speeds on those roads, and you'll see that in downtown Boise, downtown Meridian, the way in which they've incorporated streetscapes and curb extensions and all kinds of things, tree canopies, construction of buildings. People will drive the speed that they feel comfortable driving.
Right.
And so those are the kind of investments that I think you guys are probably already talking about. It's going to have a much bigger impact on actual speeds than just changing the speed limit sign.
Right.
And can I ask a quick question though? It's related to what you just mentioned. Based on what you said, it sounds like the intention is to keep Eagle Road a 3-lane section going all the way north. Is that the intention?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say it would be.
So then, if you've got 75% of the traffic being through traffic, is the intention with these other street improvements to divert traffic away from Eagle Road? And is that, how is that? What's the plan? What's the intention here?
Yeah, it's so it can be spread out. So you have options. Like another example, if I leave from here and I go up Eagle Road and I'm going to go to City Hall. Okay, I can go all the way up to State Street and make a right, or if it's getting crowded, I can turn on Plaza. I can go up Second. I can make it right. It just gives you multiple ways that you can funnel everything through your city instead of just going to one point, which right now what it does, we've now given. So let's say I want to go over to the Rib Shack and Casa Mexico, which are over on the west side of Eagle Road in Old Park. Okay, if this extension happens on Old Park, I don't have to go up Eagle Road, wait, make a left to go there. I can turn out left at Old Park, I can go up, make my left again, and
Well, and
just
I-
have different alternatives.
Sure, and that makes sense for destination traffic, but what about traffic that's just playing through traffic? And that's where a lot of the congestion comes from at the moment.
Right.
Is just the through traffic.
So the through traffic, in my belief, eventually what will happen is people will find those alternatives like I do. So I get to decide, like I said, I get to decide when I go home. I live on Floating Feather and Ballantyne, so it's way over at this spot, the next north-south route. I can either go through downtown, know it's gonna take me a little longer, know I gotta go slower. You know, I might see, you know, Jim on his bike on the corner and, hey, how you doing? And, you know, or I need to get home because, you know, I'm late to go out with my wife for dinner. You know, and I'm headed down the bypass and I go up Ballantyne. You know, it's faster, it's a little bit longer, it doesn't seem like it's the direct route, but people will do that. Mary May, who lives over Lexington Hills, you know, instead of going up through Eagle Road and going down Floating Feather, you shoot down the 44 to 55 and you come in the back way. You know, because you know that the downtown is for the activity hub. It's not for the through traffic.
Well, and I understand what you're saying. I'm still kind of like, I tend to approach it from a psychological standpoint, and I wonder the extent to which a lot of people are going to actually make those kinds of diversions, and how many are just going to stick with it. We're going to keep having that congestion problem all through the future.
You know, I'm thinking it may wind up being some concern there, but you look at what happened with downtown Boise when they decided what 8th Street was gonna be when it grew up. You know, people do make those detours around that area if they're not going to be parking and walking. Or they'll go, in this case, they'll just continue to go straight through on Eagle.
And you know, congestion in your downtown's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, they say in
We don't
downtown,
disagree.
F is not failure, it's fabulous. And so, you know, you want that. You want that kind of atmosphere of that happening. And once again, those people might decide they want to go home and see who's out at the restaurant, who's doing what, who's around. That's kind of that small town feel we like.
Yeah, it's always just a question of how much.
Yeah. Did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say, relative to funnel, because I drive that every day, and no, I personally hate the congestion. But, no, relative to that, if we say relative to this section, Nicole brought it up, the colander versus the funnel. We have the funnel right now. We need the colander. We need multiple options in order to get to places. This disperses the traffic a little bit more. Right now in the morning, coming down with the 2 schools that are there, it's backed up.
Right.
Literally, I'm almost halfway. It is faster for me to go hit Floating Feather and go to 55 than it is to come down Eagle Road.
Perfect.
And this one, no, that's what.
True story.
It is. And then, but one of the problems we're running into is the intersection. I mean, right now you talk about, okay, if we could expand the section from State Street to Eagle, that doesn't do anything because most of the bottleneck is from there past.
Right.
So we need a way to disperse that a little bit in the morning coming out. So the big one is the Aikens. Won't be that. The Aikens proposal is silly. I have no clue why it ever came up because it wouldn't do anything. Other
On
than
the west side, Aikens?
Yeah, the west side of Aikens as a potential, because that one right now is, I understand what they're trying to do, but all that's going to do, based on the amount of traffic that we have there, that is going to go all the way back to State Street, and you're going to pile back on State Street. There's no way to get enough out with the amount of traffic that we have in the morning. That is, I don't know how that was ever a feasible option. Whereas Old Park is, that one legitimately can disperse traffic a lot more, both ways. So, I mean, that's just the big one. Is that we need a colander, not a funnel. And I think the plan right now is more of a funnel, expanded funnel, but still. A funnel.
I think with all the new implications and the impacts that Nicole presented and the possible new development that may or may not be taking place, there are so many variables out there floating around. So rather than push a project through that's not really or may not be the right fit, I don't see any downside to pushing the pause button and deferring this if everything fits, so that these things, wait to see what you find out about the potential development, et cetera. And I don't see any diminishing returns.
You know, there's another thing, and Mary and our staff will help you with this, with the maximum potential for what we do with our budget in the next few weeks. You will see that at best, we're looking at over $100 million of projects either being deferred or going away in the next 10 years, correct? With option number 4, and you should share that with Nicole and the mayor and others, so that it may change some of your priorities on some other things as well. But and so that's just another reason for doing what Mary just indicated.
And like I said, and like we talked about too, is maybe we can do Aikens and Plaza and in 2023, but then do 2024, you do the State Street and the widening and everything of Eagle Road and all that.
And by the way, if you have any questions about how to make business work during that period of time, call Meridian. That split corridor project they did that took a couple of years, the number one priority was saving businesses.
Yeah. And that didn't work too well.
In only a couple of cases, there were a couple of hundred businesses impacted.
The company I used to work for was on Main Street.
Was it?
And took a huge hit, and to this day still does. So, you know.
Mr. President, does staff have any thoughts or anything that you want to speak to regarding the deferring this project? Any downsides, or if that's appropriate at this time?
If you remember back to the last couple of meetings we had, my biggest objection to any deferral was the additional costs.
Right.
And you seem to have already indicated a willingness to address that.
And actually, in today's market, we might even save money.
Well, if we could get this impact fee statute amended in the meantime, our flexibility would be much greater. Because it's a shame that you're left out of impact fee eligible project.
It would be good to, if Justin has some additional perspective. We did do a walk around a few weeks ago. Director Wong and Justin.
I don't want to see our sidewalks be temporary asphalt.
So there's clearly more discussions to be had about any sort of agreement that goes with that. Director Wong.
Mr. President, Commissioners, Council members, thank you. Yes, there are always options. Yes, there's always opportunities to make a project better. As some of the members may remember, the last time that Eagle decided that they did not want to do something that we had already gone to the 95% on, you lost several $1 million in opportunity because that was quickly moved to other projects in Ada County. Now, that being said, I have spoken with our staff. We have some flexibility where we can defer this planning process for maybe a year without, at this time, removing any of the dollars that have already been allocated or planned for this project. So options are there. When you spoke about partnerships, which I know the Commission is always looking for on these things, that will require agreements on the details as to who does what to whom and who pays for what on those sort of things. As the mayor knows, because we were invited to walk this area, and I greatly appreciate it. I learned a lot from that, just walking the area and seeing exactly what the concept was. There's potential expensive real estate right there. There's a potential expensive business impacts to the Walgreens that are out there based on this plan. But again, that being said, things are workable. And I think that if the Commission, understanding the implications to the proposed budget, if the Commission is supportive of deferring this without doing anything to the dollars that have already been planned, I think our staff and the Eagle staff can work through this and provide both the elected leaderships options going forward, or considerations. Commissioner May, does that answer that question?
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you, Director Wong. I don't think we could move forward or make a decision knowing where our staff stands on this and the implications there. So.
Okay.
Any other?
This was less painful than you thought it might be?
No.
Oh.
You know, it's interesting. You hear a lot of people complain about ACHD. I'm a big proponent of it. I tell this to everybody. I go, you know, you guys, your administration fees of 8%. If we just split that through the 6 cities, you know, 48% of the same amount of dollars would be spent in administration, right? And so it makes sense. I just think between what you're talking about with the legislature and the things that have changed over the last 20 years and how these cities have created their own trip capture, that there needs to be a little different look at how, you know, how money can be spent, how things can be done throughout all the different communities, where before it was really focused on how do you get everybody to Boise every day, and that's not what's happening anymore. And so I think
That's actually something that's like, if I had a magic wand and could wave, then the whole paradigm would change and people wouldn't be driving 30 miles to work. They'd be driving maybe 5.
so.
So there's one thing that I don't know whether it's time around. I haven't spoken to anybody about this, but we have heard of, because of the build out of roads, we now have, I don't know over 5,000. What is the center line mile? 5,210. And so it's spread out over the county. We have to have 3 well-functioning maintenance yards. So far, you largely rely on our maintenance out of Cloverdale, and we are moving and developing one off of U-Stick, which was, that'll be the one that will largely serve Eagle. Any help you can provide in helping to facilitate that, development of that would be greatly appreciated, because it's not just Meridian's maintenance facility, it is Eagle's and Meridian's maintenance facilities. And we have a brilliant director of maintenance who is
She's right here.
right there. And any help you can, because it's not just about, just like you say, it's regional. It's not just about, you know, providing maintenance for Meridian. It's there, but the maintenance yard for Eagle. So.
So what's Andy?
And we're moving the one here to the Boise one, largely Boise, to Federal Way, so it's more appropriate based on the, 50 years ago, a maintenance yard next to the river was, okay, everybody put junk next to the river. But now it's like, no, there could be a higher, better use. You can produce a lot of income off of this. Garden City will be making a lot of money off of this land eventually, but we have to move that. So we've got 2 facilities. Everybody knows we've got 2 facilities. We've got a site and sort of simultaneously, and the more hurdles that get put in front of that, the harder that is to make. So any help you can provide from the City of Eagle would be greatly appreciated. Is that correct, Director, Deputy Director?
Just assistance.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So are you guys actually looking for a site?
No, we've got it.
Okay, that's okay.
We've
that's
got
what
it.
it
We
was.
just have to,
No,
you can always, you getting the land is the easy part.
Oh, really? That's
All
actually
the
work.
other- all the other hurdles that have to overcome, you have to jump over.
And that's another great reason why ACHD, right? You have 3 maintenance yards to service 6 cities. If each one of the cities did their own roads, they'd have we're with the same amount of money. Like I
You
said,
have
it
to
keeps
negotiate
coming.
with Meridian to
Yeah.
use their maintenance yard.
Yeah. No, that's great. You know, so. All right.
Question over here.
Okay.
All right.
Relative to pedestrians, so I'm on the PP RC relative to pedestrian and bikeable lanes in particular. I think this one downtown, we've studied this one to death and we've contemplated it. Relative to the rest of Eagle and future projects, so we've kind of heard there's the potential for a change in how the roadways will look relative to bikes in the future, shifting away from actually having bike lanes on the roads and doing the 10-foot wide sidewalks.
Multi-use pathways, yeah.
So what's, I mean, have you guys got, I know VAC you guys work with, and from our group right now is, I mean, that's a horrible idea. I mean, just in relative to the fact is, if you're talking mountain bikes or slower vehicles, that works. When you're actually talking non-motorized transportation, non-motorized bikes and cars work better than bikes and people. So we're just wondering what the thought, I guess and then I can pass it on, is what's the thought process with going in that direction as opposed to expanding on the roads?
I'll tell you part of it. We like to get rid of as much congestion as we could in the morning. One of the biggest ways to do that is to inspire mothers to let their kids walk and bike to school. They won't do that on the roads, no matter what we do. They won't do it on the asphalt. They will do it on a multi-use pathway. And if we could take thousands of cars off the road at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning because mama doesn't have to get in her car and take the kids to school, we've accomplished a huge service to everyone else without spending tens of millions of dollars.
So we've got internally on ours, we've identified the difference between, so we have residential, which are the 5-foot, versus community trails, which are 8-foot. 8-foot would be more realistic for those because they're slower moving. If you're talking kids in particular, they're slower moving. What you're doing right now is you're actually taking, so the other non-motorized transportation people, so the folks that are doing non-motorized, riding their bikes to work, they can't use those roads. You've got pedestrians in the way and you've got the slower kids. They have to use the roadway. So you're actually taking a potential means of transportation of reducing those trips away.
Not really. We've had this discussion with our BAC, and that is not the feeling.
So, and to build on that, it's data-driven, totally data-driven. One of the things that people do not appreciate is building a bicycle facility that's never used because it's not connected and it's not perceived as safe. And so it's really critical that if we're going to build it, we want people to feel safe using it. And so it's completely data-driven, and we get some great data from various sources, and then some real-life data from our advisory committee, which is spread out around the whole community, so that, you know, different kind of mixed settings. And, you know, it's really critical that it be used, that we not build something, and you've seen them on arterials, bike lanes and the green stripes, and you've probably never seen a cyclist in that. And that's public right of way, public owns it, we have to maintain it, and if it's not used, we shouldn't be building it. So let's use something that can be built, build something that can be used. And so that's how the shift has taken place. And businesses want people coming, their customers and their employees coming to them, not just by driving, because they have to provide the parking for it, but also by cycling and walking. And to the extent that can be provided by businesses that are on and near arterials, it makes a whole lot of sense. Now the question is, as we've expanded throughout the whole county, that's a need so that we don't force people to have to drive, is to make that impact fee eligible and let those businesses, new businesses coming in, trying to attract that growth that helped pay for that with their impact fees. Because right now the list is extremely long since we don't get to use impact fees for any of that. We have to do it through property taxes. So it's data driven. And the question often has risen, well, why did you build it? Because this segment isn't being used yet, but we have to build that piece now before it gets connected to this piece. And just like we would be getting a lot of justifiable condemnation if we built roads that didn't get used. We don't want to build bike lanes that don't get used or sidewalks that don't get used, but we do need to help build segments to those to make them connected. And if you'll see on our master bike plan, you see where the bike routes are. They're not on every arterial, they're not on every local road, but there is a connectivity. They don't have as many options as people in cars, but the goal is to build out the network. So it's like the arteries in your body, the arteries in your body, all of it.
I remember you brought that up at our last joint meeting that we had, talking about the real serious cyclists that are out there on the weekends. We see them on Floating Feather and Beacon Light, groups of 5 or 6, and they are hauling. They're going fast, and I think your example was to have that group on the multi-use pathways with the mother with the stroller, etc. So I understand where you're coming from, and we have heard from those more serious cyclists, not just the ones that are commuting, about the coming together and some of the safety hazards.
Well, I think you run into that one is Eagle is very different relative to the biking community. If you look at the demographics at all, Eagle is about like 50 times more number of individuals with bikes and do cycle riding than any other place in Ada County. So when you talk about actually people that use the road for not only just transportation but also recreational riding, I bet if you ever did counts, you'll probably have up to 200 to 300 people on a weekend on Floating Feather and or Beacon Light. There's no way you could put those on a 10-foot wide, the multi-use.
That's not our intention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where
Yeah.
we've kind of heard is
They need to
basically
be-
it's
they need to
one
be
or the
on
other.
like they are.
Yes,
Yeah.
they'll still
Yeah.
prefer that. I mean,
Right.
they're-
Absolutely, but
They wanna
will there
go
be
fast.
bike
Oh my
lanes?
gosh,
Yeah.
they'll drive down to Baja California, ride down, on
Well-
highways and all kinds of, that's not what we're worried about. We want all those other people who would like to cycle. and
Oh, no,
just-
absolutely.
they just simply don't feel safe.
So the only thing that we've heard so far is an either or
Oh, yeah.
scenario. So there still will be bike lanes on there with a 5-foot or 3-foot wide.
You mean on
They-
the
it's
traffic
a
lanes
shared-
in addition to the multi-use pathways?
Yes.
Shared,
That's-
they would share the lane,
No,
just like
that's
they
not
do
the
on the
intention.
rural roads.
Okay, so then it is a shared road. So there will be a designated bike lane on those
I
roads.
mean, chances are they're going just as fast as the tractor.
They are, well, but that's the one of the reasons, like Beacon Light in particular is one of those where, no, you don't ride on Beacon Light because you will die.
Oh,
But-
yeah, there's no room
They
there.
understand.
Bike lanes are 5.
They're
A tiny percentage.
Yeah.
they're supposed to be, but like a Floating Feather, if you ever look at those, they're theoretically supposed to be 5, but most of those are closer to 3. And then the debris and stuff like that. So that was just, like I said, the biking community in particular.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that you were talking about the more serious cyclists.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and.
No, not the-
yeah.
the general-
Weekend,
Yes.
they're out there in force.
Well, it's also worth keeping in mind that the on-surface bike lanes require, that much of an extension of full roadway section.
Absolutely.
Which is quite a bit more expensive per linear foot than your multi-use pathway that's for pedestrians and bicycles. And so there's a tremendous, significant cost difference there. So that's another reason why the shift has been made to preferring these multi-use pathways. We can get more of them done for the same dollars than if we're doing the other type of bike lanes, in view of the concern that, gee, they don't get used very much. And those are kind of the driving factors.
And here's, just budget for it, because Boise is helping us on the green belt and on the Federal Way pathway. The multi-use pathways have been in there for a long, long time. They help us with the maintenance. So we do have some maintenance vehicles, and we're gonna get some more.
I heard about the sweepers.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they use it, right?
it requires a maintenance shift too, to think, okay, we can't have these gigantic sweepers going down these narrower, multi-use pathways. The city has those, City of Boise has some of those, and we have some, and so that's kind of, it's a shared maintenance responsibility. So I'm hoping we could do that with Eagle as we get multi-use pathways, more multi-use pathways, a shared maintenance responsibility. So another thing that causes them not to be used is when debris just accumulates. After a snow and all the junk that accumulates, then they don't get used.
Right. And that's what forces
It's a nice
bikers.
sweeper going down
Yeah.
the road, and then the pathway still has junk in it and broken glass, who knows what. So there is a maintenance component that we have to keep going.
We can get Eric a broom.
There you go.
I've been maintaining the spot in front of my house on Floating Feather for the last 10 years because nobody does anything and it just
Take your
fills
little
up with
skid
dirt.
steer out there with a broom on it.
Yeah.
You can do the, what is it, the dedication, sponsorship.
Yeah, sponsorship item.
Flat or gutter.
Okay, is there anything else anyone would like to discuss at all? We're here. If you don't, 10 minutes from now, we won't be.
We know where to find you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys really taking the time to listen to what we have to say. And like I said, I like to bring things as early as possible and thought process. And, once again, see how we can work together and make things happen.
Yes, ditto. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I'll call our portion of this meeting adjourned.
I will do the same.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you so
everyone.
much.
It was great to have you.
You should get that option for this.
Yeah. I will.
Or Nicole anyway,
Yeah,
so she
yeah.
can bring in